Hello and welcome to the Space News Commercial Space Transformers series, where we aim to give you a behind-the-scenes look at the people and companies driving the space industry's commercial transformation. I'm Jason Rainbow, Senior Staff Writer at Space News, and today I'll be talking to Alex Greenberg, co-founder and Chief Operating Officer of Space as a Service provider Loft Orbital. Loft sources satellite buses from multiple vendors and then integrates them with payloads that it flies on behalf of customers looking to reduce costs and the complexity of owning and operating their own infrastructure. Last week, the company announced a $170 million funding round to accelerate the business and to streamline operations with more artificial intelligence. Alex, firstly, thank you so much for making time for us today. So soon after your big funding announcement, I bet you've been inundated with requests for your time. I trust things have calmed down a little by now.
Definitely ready to get back to work. The PR is fun for a day, but definitely looking forward to getting our heads down in the trenches and go back to work.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, hoping to learn a little bit more about that for this very brief discussion, I promise. So let's start off with just what sets Loft apart in what is increasingly a competitive space as a service market, where we're seeing, we're also seeing companies now offering customers a platform to share a single satellite to reduce costs and investment risk. What's your approach to space as a service?
Absolutely. So just taking a step back, we started the company 8 years ago because we looked at the industry. Myself and my co-founders had worked in space for a while, and we just saw that it takes way too long to build a satellite and get it to space. So our whole company's mission is all about making a faster, simpler, and lower cost path to orbit for any mission. And for us, a mission can be a physical payload, so a sensor or a payload or something like that that we physically fly. It can also increasingly mean AI software or other kinds of software applications, and we can talk more about that in a bit. So really what Loft has done is we've sought to standardize and productize our satellite platform so that we can really treat as much as possible a satellite like true infrastructure where we can deploy missions on board without a lot of design and bespoke non-recurring engineering on the platform itself. So when we get a customer, we already have our satellites on a shelf. We've pre-bought all of them. They're already built. Our interface is already wired into the satellite. We basically pull the satellite off the shelf, do payload integration, test it, launch it, and then get it to space and start operating it. So we've really tried to make the whole process as turnkey and standardized as productized as possible. And I think the underlying thing we're doing, which is unique from my perspective, is we're not designing satellites for a specific customer. We're taking our existing platform and configuring it for the customer's mission. So there's a lot less technical risk inherent to that. And as a result, the schedule tends to not slip as much.
Mhm. So how will this latest funding round support this mission? Is it just about getting more satellites on that shelf?
Yeah, so we're fortunate that we've got a healthy backlog of customers who have entrusted us with their mission. Nearly 30 satellites that have been sold out or booked by customers. And so priority number one for us is getting those in space. So we've got a bunch of launches this year. We have a bunch next year, starting to even manifest 2027. What's kind of the inflection point we're at is up until this point, we had really just been launching on the order of one or two satellites a year. And now we're scaling up to launch 10 plus a year. So all the work that we've been doing up to this point has been building our production capacity. We opened up a new integration and test facility in Colorado, building the automation of our fleet. There's a massive difference between launching one or two satellites at a time and operating a small fleet versus a fleet of 20 satellites. It's a huge difference. So kind of building up those capabilities, as well as just automation of the entire process, getting to that turnkey vision that I mentioned earlier. Automation is a huge part of that, as well as just continuing to mature our products so that they truly are standardized. That's really what we're focused on right now. There's a few other projects we have in the background, but I'd say that's our first priority as a company today.
Yeah, so where is that demand coming from, and what shifts are you seeing in customer needs or expectations that are driving this innovation in your services and the need to go faster?
Yeah. I think just in general, space is like we kind of see three buckets of things that that are motivating our customers. They want connectivity and data. They want to understand climate change and just understand the climate's impact on Earth, and national security and sovereignty driven customers. So those are like, we have a lot of different customer types. We're agnostic to the payloads that we fly. We're really just a platform for anything. As long as it fits on our satellite, we can fly it. But those are the kind of the three buckets of things. And across all three of those things, there's just in general more urgency from our customers to innovate on faster cycles and get satellites in space faster. So not every customer wants that. And in fact, if you're a customer with a very bespoke mission, or you have very demanding requirements that require more of a elegant or exquisite solution, we're actually not a good fit for you. We're a good fit if you are okay with a reliable solution that is not necessarily customized to your needs. It might not be fully optimized for what you need, but it's available off the shelf. It can go fast or get to space quickly, and there's minimal technical risk. So if that's what you care about, then I think Loft is a great option. And we're increasingly seeing a greater share of customers move in that direction. In terms of the customers that we're working with today, they fall into a couple different buckets. The first bucket is commercial space. So these are companies that have some kind of business case that depends on space. And we have a lot of customers in the agriculture sector and communications who need space, but don't want to become a vertically integrated satellite company themselves. And so Loft is sort of like their outsourced space segment for whatever mission they want to fly. Second category are, or really the remaining categories are all across different governments. So we've got the US government. Obviously, they're the big buyer in the industry. We've set up Loft Federal, which is a subsidiary focused on doing classified satellite integration for federal customers. We work with civil space as well. We've got a number of flights for NASA that we either have already deployed or are launching soon. We have an office in Europe as well, and so we're serving European institutional customers. Our office is in Toulouse, France, so we've got a particular focus on France, but have contracts with European Space Agency and are talking to a lot of other European countries as well. And then finally, there's really the rest of the world, which is actually, I think, a super dynamic and interesting market. There's a lot of countries that have a compelling strategic need to have assets in space, and they want greater sovereignty and control over those assets. What they don't have is an industrial base to develop them themselves. And so part of our work there with some countries is helping them actually build that infrastructure in their country so that they can basically exert more control over their space infrastructure.
Very good. Okay, and cooperation it's a mouthful, but it's also something we're seeing a lot more in the sector. How do you view the balance between collaboration and competition among commercial space companies, and what partnerships have been most impactful for yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, partnerships are a critical part, almost existential foundation of our business. The reason for that is we made a original first principles decision to not be vertically integrated. So we actually don't build our own buses. Instead, we partner with companies who already have a bus production line up and running. And as much as possible, we just want to buy essentially chassis off the line. And what we focus on are the hardware and software abstractions on top of the bus. That's actually one of the parts of the mission that customers don't really think about, but the integration and operations of their mission, that's where we focus. So the bus to us, we want that to be a commoditized chassis. And then what we focus on is all of the kind of interfacing, the glue logic, the abstraction layers between the satellite platform itself and the customer. So that's where our technology development has focused. But as a result, we have to be really tied in with some bus partners, who in some cases can be competitors as well. We might partner with them on some things and they might be supplying our competition, or they might even be our competition, and that's okay. It's the space industry. I think it's impossible to avoid that. So there's a few companies we've worked with on the bus side so far, notably Leo Stella. They had built the constellation for Black Sky. So we said, hey, you already have built a bunch of satellites for Black Sky. We want to buy essentially the identical bus that's flying the Black Sky mission. We did a similar thing with Airbus, who built, I don't know, 600 or 700 OneWeb satellites. Our next generation satellite platform is based on a chassis, like a bus that we get from Airbus that flew the OneWeb constellation. So the whole platform is, unique to Loft. We have developed something we call the hub, which is about half of the, half the battle. It's doing all the payload interfacing and control, but the bus to us provides power, it provides stability. It's sort of doing all those core functions of the spacecraft. So that's on the bus side. We also have a lot of payload partners. Not all of our customers have a payload. So in many cases, we are buying payloads ourselves, either on behalf of customers or for ourselves. And that's something, we started with YAM-6, which we launched this past year. And I think you'll see that a lot more. We'll be deepening our payload partnerships as we deploy some of our own satellites in the future.
Very cool. Yeah, interesting dynamic because I hear a lot about the merits of vertical integration and the advantage of just owning all the things so you can control costs and supply chains and as much as you can. But you're finding success in kind of the other on the flip side of this and
I
greater
think
flexibility, I imagine. Yeah.
I think the truth is both have their upsides and downsides. When we got started, our first equity round was $3 million. Kind of hard to vertically integrate with that amount of money. Honestly, it takes hundreds of millions, if not billions, to truly properly vertically integrate, depending on what sector of the space supply chain you're in. Like launch would be maybe the most expensive. It's for satellites, it's still really hard. And so I think we made the first principles decision that being a satellite integrator and operator is a different discipline than being a bus manufacturer. There are companies that do both really well, but that's really hard. We decided with limited capital, we should focus on the integration, being an integrator, and work with different bus providers who had already sunk the non-recurring engineering, who had already built supply chains, who had built teams and facilities. Like there's a massive amount of work just to be able to build a bus. It's not just designing a bus. There's so much infrastructure that has to exist. So certainly being vertically integrated, if you figure it out, if you're SpaceX or Rocket Lab, that's an amazing position to be in. But the amount of capital required to make that happen is really high. So I think maybe eventually we tend more towards vertical integration, but at the genesis of the company, we decided that was not the capital efficient path to take.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, given the time of year, what are Loft's priorities for 2025? What should we be looking out for?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, it's launching that backlog of satellites. That's our first priority. We've been in build mode for a while. We've launched a small fleet, but we really need to scale up our fleet. And like I said, we have a lot of customers who have entrusted us with their mission. We take that trust very seriously. We never take it for granted. And it's our job to now deliver those customers to space and not just get them launched, but actually get them commissioned and kind of hand the joystick over to them so they can control their missions, get their data, and actually derive value from our service. So that's the first thing we're focused on. Secondly is basically paving the way for future growth. And the way we're doing that is by flying customer-provided AI applications in space. So I know that sounds crazy and people might be rolling their eyes at, yet another crazy-sounding AI business. And who knows, it might be crazy because this is a nascent market. There isn't much money being spent in it right now. So whereas in the prior market, in the space infrastructure market, we're flying physical payloads for customers. That's a tried and true business. There's a lot of companies doing that. There's a very known market for that. On the AI side, it's unclear exactly who the buyers are, who the customers are, what the value chain is going to look like, what the market is going to look like. What we have conviction, though, is in a few things. One is that satellites people want more compute in space because they want satellites to become more autonomous and smarter. So you need to fly compute hardware in space. You need the ability to deploy software easily, third-party software applications to a first-party satellite, which is actually not how satellites are designed today. Most satellites are kind of like a walled garden where they're built for one application. They're built for the owner-operator to maybe do a couple software updates here and there, but to open that up to third-party developers and run software apps on board, that's certainly not a thing. The other thing that we believe is that satellites will increasingly be used for supporting more real-time tactical use cases. So things that require real-time feedback or real-time insights. And if you want real-time, you need good sensors, you need onboard compute, and you need intersatellite connectivity to provide essentially always on access to the space. You can send bits of information up and down to the satellite very quickly. So that's what we're intent on providing. And then the use cases, it's really up to our partners and customers to define. So we are positioning ourselves as an infrastructure provider. We think with what we've already built, we're really well positioned there. We want to make it easy for customers to deploy those apps and run them on board our satellite, but we're not really going to be the app developer. We do have a lot of customers and initial partners here. So this is something we're excited about. We launched EM6 this past year. EM6 is a essentially AI-enabled satellite. So it's got some cameras, it's got an RF, kind of passive RF sensor, it's got an inter-satellite link, and it's got some GPUs on board. And so we're actually able to already run these types of what we call virtual missions on board EM6 for customers that we've announced, like Microsoft, Helsing, which is a kind of AI for defense company, company called Agenium doing ship and vessel tracking. That's a popular use case that we see, and a bunch of companies that we have not yet announced, but I think are pretty exciting and impressive.
Exciting to hear. Good stuff. All right. Well, then, lastly, then, because AI is a buzzword for space and well for many industries, and there's a lot of hype around it still. What are the biggest challenges Loft faces in integrating AI technologies into operations or services? Essentially, what are the main obstacles you see in the way of greater adoption?
Yeah, maybe I'll paint for you the end state vision that we want to get to, and then I think walk back from some of the challenges to get there.
Right.
So in our future world, we have a segment of our fleet that's flying payloads that our customers provide to us, and we've got a segment of our fleet flying payloads that we own. And like I said, it needs to be paired with compute and real-time connectivity to the satellite. So I think the idea is that we have a catalog of the resources that we have available. We are selling essentially capacity of those capabilities, and customers can log into our portal, swipe a credit card, and then deploy whatever software they want to run whatever application they want on our satellites, and then pay basically by the drink. It's consumption-based pricing, just like with cloud computing. And that entire process should be fully self-serve. We don't even need to be in the loop. We're just providing the infrastructure, and customers can independently use it. So that's a very, very far jump from where we are today, where there's more handholding, there's much more collaboration with the customer before we deploy their apps. There's a lot more kind of specifications that we have to provide to the customer. It's much harder to do. But that's kind of where we want to go. So really the biggest challenges are around automating that flow, making it really predictable for customers, really working on the pre-deployment validation so that the customer knows that their app is going to work. We know that that is not going to pose any security risks or create any harm for the satellite. So there's a lot of kind of these workflows that we need to streamline and automate, and then ultimately turn into more of a self-serve motion from the customer.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing that. And Alex, thank you so much again for your time. I'll let you get back to it, and I look forward to following your progress this year and beyond.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jason. Have a good one. Bye.